I like to ask a lot of questions. I always have, as a kid, as a teenager, when I graduated from school and was figuring out what to do in life, still now as a parent. One question I always come back to is, why do we do things the way we do them? Why not do them differently? I noticed that my father asked a lot of questions as well. He's a lawyer. My brothers, I was the oldest. I was sort of the arbiter of right and wrong. Usually I was right and they were wrong. And so I thought maybe I should be a lawyer or a judge. I got a job working in the office of the Supreme Court of the United States, in the Chief Justice's office. And the court fascinated me. I watched as the justices sat and listened, and they asked questions, and their questions were supposed to lead to deeper fairness and more understanding. And I thought, this is what I want to do in life. I want to ask questions that can help lead us to a better world. I did not become a Supreme Court justice, as you may have heard. And I didn't go to law school. But instead, my desire to ask questions that led to a better world led me to be an artist. I wanted to live a life of inquiry, of curiosity, of wonder. And I thought art might be the best pathway for me to do that. The best questions were collaborations, and the best art for me is one that engages community and reflection. So after the Supreme Court, I asked another question. What am I supposed to do now? And fortunately, I received an artistic fellowship to go to a place I had never been before, to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And I knew very little about that place. And what I had learned, I learned through images I had seen in the Western media growing up here as a kid in the United States. And the pictures that I saw did not remotely represent the complexity of what that place is. And so I spent the next 10 years trying to show what I saw there, knowing that I too would fall short. Now, my first project there was a photography project. And I had learned that the photographer is the person who holds the camera, the person who holds all the power. But I was interested in a different question. What might it look like if I made pictures with people, collectively? And so for the first 10 years of my being there, I worked in a neighborhood with a group of young people, and we passed the camera around. Sometimes I made the picture, sometimes somebody else made the picture, sometimes we don't remember who made the picture. And the result were photographs that told stories about people's lives, but they also indicated to the viewer that neither they nor I fully understand the whole story. When you see these pictures, don't you want to learn more? The result of this collaborative process was much more complexity in the images than anything I could have made on my own. Take this picture by Mesfin Muhammad, who lost his parents when he was very young. I asked him the question, who would you be if you weren't who you are? And he responded with this photograph. If I were not who I am, I would be an old man. Sometimes the pictures reveal trauma, as in this photograph by Salamawit Alemu, who was 8 years old when she made this picture in response to my question, can you show me a memory? She made this picture titled, I Saw Mommy Dead. She made this picture again and again during our years of working together, here when she was 14. She wanted to remember, but also to forget. Questions can help us navigate difficult times. When we experience deep pain, sometimes questions can seem indulgent. We want answers. We want action, justice, healing, not art. I want these things too. But for better or worse, human creativity is an irrepressible impulse. And in times of uncertainty, of loss, of pain, this is what we do. Those of us who survive, we honor what is lost. We pick up the pieces. We ask questions. We make new things. Who are we? What does this mean? What are we supposed to do now? These are creative and essential questions, and they're also heartbreaking. In one of my favorite books, Memory for Forgetfulness, Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish writes in beautiful and painfully poetic prose that as bombs fell around his apartment building in Beirut, Lebanon in 1982, all he could ask for, all he wanted, was a cup of coffee. The aroma of the beans, the ritual of brewing the coffee, that first sip. He knew he couldn't make everything right in that moment, but he wanted the smallest slice of normalcy. My family also has Lebanese origins, and on my mother's side. And when I went to Beirut for the first time, it was in the wake of another war. I went south to a village called Zebkin, close to my family's ancestral village. This village had been bombed during the war. And with Darwish's idea of just a simple ask for coffee in mind, I found young people to work with, and I asked them to make pictures and maps that showed me the simple memories of their lives. And through their work, we traveled backwards in time, and they showed me the story of their lives before the war. Wasim showed me the picture of when he broke his leg, playing with his friends. Wafara drew me this map and marked on the map the spot on the edge of town that she took me to and showed me where she used to steal fruit from her neighbor's yard. Sometimes the most revealing questions are simple. What happened? What now? Sometimes the best questions are surprising. Who would you be if you weren't who you are? And sometimes what matters most is where we ask the questions. Now, I had been making art projects in small communities all around the world for 20 years. And I found myself walking one night with a friend of mine, a fellow artist, Hank Willis Thomas, who had also been making work and affecting communities in other parts of the world. And we started to wonder, what if our work as artists was seen as more directly political? What might it look like if artists were seen as political operatives? Could art contribute to democracy, and if so, how? Questions can help us challenge the status quo. We want, as humans, we want to know, we want to understand, we want to see. But political realities, while they may have reasons, they're not always comprehensible, and this makes us feel uncomfortable and vulnerable, and it creates fear and anxiety of not knowing what we think we should know, and that can lead to terrible places where power can exploit that fear and pretend that it has the answers by abolishing the questions, by shutting down uncertainty. And yet we know that civilizations that do not tolerate question asking do not survive. We need better questions for our collective survival. Thus began For Freedoms, an organization that we started to improve and broaden civic discourse through art. At first, we started as a super PAC, which many lawyers that we spoke with advised us against, including my father. And we enlisted our friends, fellow artists, and we put their voices out into the public through billboards, through digital media, and also through public events and collaborations. In a black and white political landscape, we wanted to insert nuance and questions. And what came of this project exceeded our wildest dreams. Over the course of the last 8 years, in tumultuous political and social times, we engaged hundreds of creative communities and thousands of artists across the land that is now called the United States in activities that asked essential and critical questions about who we are as a country, where we come from, including all of our flaws, and where we might go. In 2016, we asked what would happen if artists engaged in a political election. How could that change a divisive political culture? We put up 10 billboards around the United States, and then we watched as people asked questions in response, including, what does that billboard mean? We were excited that the media could amplify the questions that people were asking in response to the art that we were putting out, and that they couldn't categorize what exactly we meant. In 2018, we asked, what if we took this artistic experiment and expanded it all across the country? And so we began the 50-state initiative, which included billboards, artist-led town hall meetings, exhibitions, and interactive lawn signs that would allow participants to define freedom on their own terms. This initiative happened in all 50 states, as well as in Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., and it activated what I think of as an artistic infrastructure that runs through every city, town, home, and person in the country, through institutions, through museums, but also through everyday creative practices. Time magazine called this initiative the largest creative collaboration in US history. That year, we also asked the question, what could America look like? And we took images from Norman Rockwell, these paintings that he made in 1943 in response to Franklin Delano Roosevelt's call for every person in the world to have the right to 4 essential freedoms: freedom of worship, freedom from fear, freedom of speech, and freedom from want. And we updated these pictures with a more representative vision of what it means to be American. In the 2020 political election, we learned about this very small activist movement from 1860 that helped push for the election of Abraham Lincoln and eventually for the abolition of slavery. These young people were called the Wide Awakes, and they used creativity, art, music, and play to push for a better world. We conjured this history, and working alongside dozens of organizations and hundreds of artists around the world, we made art that asserted that civic joy can be a balm to the fear that was so present and so prevalent in that election. Also in 2020, we invited artists to literally put questions into the landscape. We had billboards in all 50 states where artists asked questions, including this one by my 5-year-old son, which I thought was one of the most profound of the whole campaign. We believe everyone is an artist, and in 2022, we invited people who had been affected by the criminal justice system to make art, sometimes for the first time, about their experiences, and we put that art out into the public. We also compiled a publication that we called the Infinite Atlas that explained and explored what justice could look like through a creative lens. Also in 2022, we asked the question, what would it look like if artists took over some of the basic democratic institutions, in this case, the Fourth Estate, the media? In the lobby of a New York art museum, we created a newsroom, and artists came and broadcast the news from their perspectives. Now, what I'm showing you is just a small slice of projects, hundreds of projects and collaborations that we've done all over the country and increasingly beyond. Each one of these projects asks essential questions and provokes ideas that are part of a much larger, infinite game that continues to unfold. Now, as the oldest brother, when I played a game as a kid, I liked to be the one that read the rules. I like to tell people what to do. And the rules for my creative practice have always been challenge what you know, embrace uncertainty, ask questions, go there. So I'm going to leave you all with a game. I want you to flex your asking muscles. What is the most vital question that you can ask about our shared future? What's the question that you fear will go unasked, or that if you ask it, you may not get the answer that you want? Think about it. What is that question for you? Here are the rules of the game. Ask that question. Start asking it tonight, tomorrow. Ask your friends, your family, your neighbors. Invite people over for dinner and discuss this question. Ask it to people you haven't met. Ask this question and see how it connects you to the rest of the world. Because I don't believe that questions are to be revered in and of themselves, or even for the answers they provoke. Questions make us feel less alone. Questions are so important because they're an admission that we don't know everything, and we need each other to figure it out. Thank you.